And we're live. I'm Dan. The handsome man next to me is Tim. And together we form the Nerd Champs. This is Nerd Side Chats, week 4. They're your weekly dose of live talks about everything nerd. Today, we're going to be covering Agatha All Along, episode 5, Darkest Hour, Wake Thy Power. But before we get started, I want to take an opportunity to talk to you, Internet. Do you have a friend or a loved one who breaks out in hives every time they see the sight of this mouse? Yes. Do you walk by and hear them mumbling things like, Luke Skywalker is a hero, not a hermit? Do they wake up in the night screaming, Ant-Man can't solo Kang? What are they thinking? If you've noticed these behaviors, your friend or loved one may just be suffering from what we call DDS, or Disney Derangement Syndrome. You see, what happened is a few years back, the Disney Corporation bought all of the beloved IP from your friend's childhood. They then piled it under so much manure that it broke your friend's brain. And now they are permanently unable to recognize anything positive that comes from the Walt Disney Company. Other side effects may be remembering things as better than they really were before the Disney acquisition, hating princesses in all their forms, and not being able to enjoy cartoons at all. So the only thing you can do when you have a friend with DDS is join a conversation. It's the only known treatment. They have to talk to others and suss out their misery. And you can enjoy it too, because I'm here with my friend with his bad case of DDS. He can no longer recognize anything by the Walt Disney Corporation as positive, and we're going to help him through it.
Talk to your doctor. May cause erectile dysfunction. Anyway,
let's check our comments and then we'll get going. Let's see. We got Barry Allen is slow again this week. Maybe the death of Alice will be the death of the song.
Spoilers, by the way, guys.
Yeah.
Spoilers, by the way.
Spoilers.
Alice dies. In case.
But the even more important spoiler is we did not get a third version of the song this week. I was crestfallen. I was heartbroken. Not so much because I love the song, but I love how much you hate the song. And it
I
brings
know, Dan.
me joy.
I know.
Barry on again. They did the previously on this week. Clearly, the showrunners like, see,
we're making a difference, Dan. This is what we're here for. We're here to make a difference, guys, so that you all know who the Salem 7 is because you got to see the previously on thanks to us. You are very welcome.
And then, there's Jess. The song will never die.
Mrs. Nerd Champ, Nerd Champ, Jess Johnson. There she is.
Letting you know, Tim, the song will never die. It lives on in our Spotify playlists forever.
Yeah.
I would put it out in the comments that it is available. It is on Spotify.
Shut up, Dan. Shut up.
As a crass grab for commercialism, they have made it available on all of your streaming platforms. If you see Tim in the street, cue it up on your favorite subscription and let him hear it because you know he loves it. So, Timmy, this week, what were your thoughts on Darkest Hour, Wake Thy Power?
Well, I thought it was, and at the expense of sounding like I actually like the show, okay? Because I didn't, okay? I will say that this was definitely the most on genre that they have done of the series so far. The first episode was just that procedural crime drama, and then, she kind of figuring out who she was. Second episode was the Ocean's 11, let's get my team together kind of thing. Yeah. Episode 3 was the 2000s wine party. Episode 4 was the 70s jam session. None of that had really anything to do with witches, Halloween, any of that kind of stuff, which is what they were kind of going for with this show. This show, they took a major step toward that. If you were looking for a Halloween special type stuff, this was more the show for you, probably. Okay. This was set, it started out on the road. They were encountered by the Salem 7 on the road, which was really creepy. That was something that was very Halloween-esque. It was very creepy. It was very good. Once they got to the location, they were once again locked in a house. That seems to be the theme, which not a fan of the theme repeating over and over again, but it is what it is. The one thing I will say is this particular location, it was set in the like a 80s slumber party, I think is what they were going for.
Yeah.
But the big thing here was that they had to use a Ouija board, which was, kind of an old trope. And then there's a ghost, there's a demon possession, there's all kinds of other creepy stuff that kind of led to being like a Halloween-esque type episode. So we find out that the ghost was Agatha's mom, okay? Yeah. And she was trying to take possession of Agatha's body is what was happening, okay? And it seems like Alice then protected her from her mom. Is that what happened there? And in the process of doing that is how Alice died. And then once they left, they ended up back on the road. And this is when we had probably the thing that everybody's going to be talking about this week, which is the confrontation between Wiccan and Agatha. Okay. Because yes, it is revealed that he is indeed Wiccan. Yep. And Agatha knew it at some point. She knew it at some point before this. I think we speculated last week. We thought maybe Agatha thought this was her son.
Yeah.
But it seems like she's known for a while that this is Wanda's son. So, so anyway.
I think she had the realization this week because she did hear the ghost of her son while they were still trapped in the house, which had that
That's
kind of
true. That is true. That is true.
It had a camp cabin feel. I did. The house gave me Friday the 13th vibes.
Yeah, very cabin-esque.
Freddy shirt this week. I should have worn my Jason shirt this week because it did have like the costuming and the set wasn't just 80s. It was very like Friday the 13th Part 3 is what I was feeling.
Yeah, in that neighborhood.
Yeah. But her son, so she hears her son's voice from beyond. So he's definitely, even if she didn't believe Rio last week, she knows he's dead because she's heard his ghost now from beyond the grave. And I think something about the way Wiccan started moralizing after they got out about how this isn't the way for him and he's not just in it for himself. And, because he realizes that Agatha's not the only selfish witch in this coven. They all start, like, hey, that's what we're here for. We're all just trying to get across over one another. And he goes on his moralizing Picard rant. And I think that's where she has the crystallization of, oh, I've heard this nonsense before. It must be genetic, and calls him out.
So I think at that point is when Agatha says you're just like your mother, and that's when that's when he starts the telekinesis and throws them in the quicksand, and then we see the top of the crown, right, which is very much similar to what Wanda wears. So I will say this once again, at the expense of sounding like I like the show, I'm going to say I did not like the show. I am glad that they did not drag this on any longer with Wiccan. It would have just been torturous. The non-reveal reveal has been such a trend recently. Okay. And I can't stand the non-reveal reveal. We had it in The Acolyte with Quamir. Okay. When he was revealed as the stranger, we all looked at each other and are like, okay, that's like the least interesting story that they could have chosen. Okay.
Yeah.
And then we look at the stranger, once again, the stranger that we had in Rings of Power. Everybody knew it was Gandalf for 2 seasons, and they just revealed it as Gandalf at the very, very end of this season. It was like, this is the most ridiculous thing that you drug this on for that many episodes. Okay?
Grand elf.
And then once again, this is teen. They always do the same thing. They give these people really ambiguous names so that we can't figure out who they are in IMBD, but the internet sleuths are more, we're more capable than they think we are. We can put 2 and 2 together with the information that you've given us. And we figured out this was Wiccan some time ago, not just because it leaked, but because there are so many cues, that you gave us. So
to their credit, if you hadn't told me, because I'm not big on internet spoilers and fan theories and stuff like that. So if you hadn't told me, I wouldn't have known this was Wiccan. And without the previously on that they gave us this episode, once he started throwing blue telekinesis around, I still wouldn't have known who Wiccan is. I would have figured out that it was Wanda's son because she goes, "Oh, you're just like your mother," and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's Wanda." I stopped reading around 0203. Even if I had a pull list 30 books long right up till yesterday, I would have never bought a book called Young Avengers. I did read Young Justice and I've read Teen Titans, but DC does better with teen superheroes. It's just a thing. Young Avengers is a ripoff of Teen Titans. They're just trying. Yeah, that's it. The DC.
They're trying to catch. They're trying to catch lightning in a bottle with these legacy characters, where they've done a lot of gender, race swapping stuff, which is not necessarily a terrible idea in certain areas, but basically they're trying to catch lightning in a bottle here and see if they can find something that people like. And it never really landed with Young Avengers like it did with Teen Titans. With Teen Titans, I feel like people embraced it a lot more. That's the way that it felt to me. But
Teen Titans was a collection of sidekicks that had been around for a very long time. Robin, then Nightwing, Dick Grayson. You had Wonder Girl, who had been around for a long time. You had Speedy, Wally West, who became the Flash for like over 20 years. I mean, these were all sidekicks. And then you started introducing Raven, Cyborg, Starfire, heroes that were teens, but not sidekicks.
Yeah.
They weren't legacy versions. Nobody ever, even in the comics, like we mentioned this last week, the legacy character doesn't work. The origin becomes too convoluted because it's 2 origins. You got the first version, and then you got to tell the story about how the first version handed it down to you, the second version. And so if you're coming in from Jump, you got to okay, who is this? It's Captain America, but he's not the first Captain America. There was this other Captain America, and then he handed his shield to this other guy, and it's just I just wanted to watch a movie about superhero.
Well, and I think the reason that I would have figured out that this was Wanda's son, and this is just because of the information that I have available. Obviously, he is aware of the mystic arts. He knows how to utilize the mystic arts, so that's one thing. But the other thing is that he is gay, and he is one of the only. I don't know of another gay witch. I don't know. So those are really the only 2 things I knew about Wiccan, is that he was gay and he's a witch. So I could have used my, my Sherlock Holmes, to be able to figure that out. But I will say that, I am glad that they didn't drag it on, because the reveal, especially if you go through the whole course of the season. We got 9 episodes, man. I don't want 4 more episodes of knowing this is Wiccan. Just tell me. I wish they would have done it 2 episodes ago, to be honest with you.
Right.
I wish they would have done it 2 episodes ago and quit dancing around it with the mouth that can't say who he is. And we know who he is now. Okay. We didn't have to do all that. And, and I think that the series is better for it, to be honest with you, because I think that the purpose of this series and what we're going to get to at the end of this series, I think, and I've said this before, I think that the purpose of this series was to try to introduce him into the MCU as a character that will actually be intricately involved, maybe in a Young Avengers project or something else. So he's going to be a very important character in this series moving forward. That's the way that the way I felt at the end of the episode.
Yeah, the series as a whole, and especially after this episode, is in search of a protagonist, of a relatable character,
a good guy. We need a good guy. There's no good guy.
I mean, Agatha is still the protagonist. She's the main mover of the plot.
But you can't cheer for Agatha. You can't cheer for Agatha. It's really hard.
It was doubled down on this week. She is selfish. She
Mhm.
is purely motivated by self-interest. Maybe she does have a tragic backstory, but we are not going to get personal growth out of this character. She's
Yeah.
not going to have a face turn. She's not going to leave the end of this series as a hero, nor should she. I think that would be disingenuous. We've had plenty of other shows also recently where you have heel turn after face turn after heel turn after, and everybody just turns, and it's like, as the character has been laid out, these turns don't make any sense. They don't play out in a
Mhm.
way that you can follow. This is consistent. Agatha is selfish. Every now and again, she may have a pang of guilt about it, but at her core, she's going to get over that and keep being selfish.
Yeah.
So, Wiccan may end up being our good guy.
Yeah.
Now, as the first step of our good guy to throw a hissy fit and drown everybody in quicksand, kind of like a real big first good guy move. But
Well, but once again, this is Wanda's son, and Wanda was always hot and cold. We've talked about this
right,
before. What Wanda was always hot and cold.
yeah,
If ever there was someone that could go from A to Z as far as good or bad at the drop of a hat, it was Wanda. Okay, it was
yeah,
always that way in the comics, and it was
yeah,
always that way actually in the MCU. It actually kind of snuck up on me in the MCU. I'm not going to lie. I did not anticipate them going that direction with Wanda, specifically because they really had ingrained her in the MCU as a hero. So
yeah.
I didn't anticipate her going back and forth like that. But she was always that way in the comics, and so it's not surprising to see that Wiccan would have a little bit of that as well. So
I wish
anyway,
Jared was here. I wish Jared was here to get furious with me, because I'm drawing a complete blank on the name of the storyline where Wanda completely warped reality. It was an X-Men storyline.
this House of
Where
M, right? Wasn't that House of M?
them, there you
Yeah.
go.
Wasn't that House of M? Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
she complete and it,
You don't need Jared. You don't need Jared. You got me. Okay.
yeah,
That's right.
he would be so mad. Like, you remember it, and you're fine that I don't. But
Yeah.
that I'm not an X-Men guy. I'm a
Yeah.
Spider-Man Avengers guy. And he'd be like, oh my God, you don't know. Because he's an X-Men guy. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah, Wanda was introduced in the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants.
Uh-huh.
She is in the, MCU fans might not know this, but Wanda is Magneto's daughter. That's
Mhm.
who she is. The crazy Slovakian origin story in the MCU with Infinity Stones and Ultron weirdness, that was all just created to get around the fact that the rights to Scarlet Witch were really murky at the time
Mhm.
between Fox and Disney, who owned the Avengers. So they had to create a whole new, very odd and kind of stupid origin story
Yeah.
for Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. So
It's why
yeah,
they never really called her Scarlet Witch. They always just called her Wanda. And I
right.
think that, that's something that it's almost like a completely different character,
Yeah.
than what was supposed to be introduced. But
Did they ever even use the name in WandaVision or Multiverse of Madness? I don't think so.
Not that I'm aware. Not that I'm
Yeah,
aware. I mean,
but
they referred to her as a witch several times, but they've never
right. Use the
called her
name.
the Scarlet Witch. So
And
yeah.
WandaVision, and this is all over the internet. This is not a new take, but she was kind of a villain of that piece as well. I mean, she had a redemption arc at the end, and it came that she was under the influence of Agatha the whole time. So that kind of gave
Mhm.
her an out. So yeah, Wiccan is showing shades of Wanda by drowning people in quicksand as his first hero reveal.
Yeah. I'm kind of
But
curious where that's going to go. Okay, into
yeah,
next week. I think that had it not leaked that this was Wiccan, I think this would have been a big hook into next week.
right.
Because that would have been a big thing to drop right at the end of the episode.
Yeah,
But the idea that it had already kind of leaked and we already knew actually after episode 1 is kind of right when it came out that everyone was like, that's Wiccan, just don't worry about it. I think after that, the hook really isn't as hard for me, because I
yeah,
kind of can see the direction it's going to head. So
yeah.
anyway,
See, Wiccan wouldn't have been a hook for me anyway because I'm not
yeah,
That's not a character that I have any familiarity with or affection for. So back to this episode, a few things. Again, I agree with you. The Salem 7, they appeared briefly in episode 2. Was it 2 or 3? I can't.
It was 2.
2.
It was 2.
Always creepy. Salem 7, very good. We could use more of Salem 7.
Yeah, were they like doing the like exorcist crawling with your arms backwards thing, like contortionist crawling backwards thing? Were they doing that kind of thing? It looked really creepy when they were doing it.
Yeah, they were doing that on the road.
I was like, I was like,
in animals, and they were like popping up out of the ground. And then episode 2, they were doing that like shuddery thing where like they move really fast, but it's like cuts, which is like always really creepy, and then they appear out of nowhere. So like that umps the Halloween feel every time you get to see them.
I'm really glad that they reminded us that we did see them in the flashback at WandaVision. I forgot about that until the previously on. So I'm really glad that they showed us that origin. I completely forgot that's where the Salem 7 came from. So
they gave us Wanda's mother trying to kill her, and then her killing them, and then I guess the Salem 7 isn't them, it's their daughters.
Okay.
It's established in the dialogue, but still it works. It's great. I did enjoy the broomsticks, the flying on broomsticks. I know, Tim, you're gonna be mad about the compositing and think that it didn't look great, but I really thought
the what? Fun. I'm sorry, the what didn't look great?
The compositing, like it wasn't perfect, but I got like E.T. Return of the Jedi vibes on that.
It was very green screen. It was very green screen. It was very, very fake. How they found the sticks and put the little spell on them was just hilariously ridiculous to me anyway.
I thought it was a fun spin on the broomstick
thing. I mean, here's the thing. If you're going to have a show about witches, you got to have them ride brooms at some point, I guess.
Right.
So I guess that's what it was all about. They did that to get away from the Salem 7, and here we are.
And I felt like the whole sequence had a very, like when they came out over the trees and across the moon, and then it pans and looks back at them as they're the whole sequence had a very E.T. vibe. It was very E.T. like when E.T. busts through the trees.
Well, and that's just an old Halloween thing, right? I mean, you can go buy like a Halloween decoration that looks like a witch flying across the moon. I mean, that's just an old Halloween trope. And so I feel like that's kind of what they were going for with that a little bit. Is just kind of a typical Halloween thing.
What it reminded me, the E.T. is a Halloween movie.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Gertie wanted to be a cowgirl, and she had to be a ghost. And
he dresses as the ghost, and it's hilarious. So
so they take off, and like really, I think if somebody will probably do this week, if you do a side by side of the angles and stuff, I think they took some of the camera moves. I mean, if you're going to shoot that kind of sequence, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you crib Spielberg and do it ET style? And I think they did some of the same angles, so that was cool. And then when Agatha, I did enjoy Catherine Hahn getting a chance to do her best Deborah Jo Rupp impression when she was pretending to be possessed by Mrs. Hart.
That was, oh man, yeah.
And it was funny that like as she's faking them out, pulling the Ouija thing around, she still can't get the name right. She's still calling her Mrs. Hart.
Yeah, for
as if
sure.
Like she would call herself Mrs. Hart, which is not her name.
Yeah,
she was dead.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I don't know.
Go ahead.
There were a few things that I just did not. I just didn't care for, and that I mean, I think ultimately this style is just once again not going to be something that I'm ever really going to be interested in. The character is not anything that I'm going to be interested in. I feel like Disney could have done something like this completely separate from Marvel, and I think that's what makes this so infuriating to me. Is that they could have done something like this if they wanted to, and they could have done it separate from Marvel. They chose to do it interwoven in Marvel for whatever reason. And, to me, Catherine Hahn getting her own project would be like Owen Wilson getting his own project as Mobius. It's like, who would really want to see that? You know what I mean? Like it doesn't really make any sense to give Catherine Hahn her own project centered around a, seventh tier character and say, go out there and make kind of a fun little Halloween thing. I just don't think it works. And I feel like if Disney wanted, like I said, if Disney wanted to do this completely separate from the MCU, I totally get that. You can do something separate from the MCU, have a fun little story about witches, have it be low budget, have it be something that maybe people just like. But when you're interweaving in the MCU, you didn't need to do this. It's not anything that needed to happen.
I think your perspective of the MCU is a little too precious, Tim. The Marvel at this point is not a franchise. It's a studio. It's a full-fledged studio. They have to produce a slate of stuff.
But what kind of stuff, Dan? What kind of stuff should they produce?
Well, I think if you're going to be a full-fledged studio, you can do all of this. You can do Agatha. You can do
Dan,
a Mobius show.
No, okay? No.
Why not? It's a full-fledged studio, Tim. They need big budget things, low budget things, middle budget things.
Dan, it's because everybody knows the implications when we're looking at Marvel Studios. I don't have to explain this to you. You know this, okay? Marvel Studios has implications. If I turn on My Little Pony, okay? If I turn on My Little Pony and it's He-Man and Optimus Prime going at it, do you think the 4-year-old girls are going to like that?
Okay.
No, right? Because that's not what they're expecting, right? There are implications. There are implications from turning that on, just like there's implications from turning on something Marvel. This is not the implication that should be that we should get when we turn this on.
Tim, I knew that He-Man wasn't in it. I knew it was a chick. Okay, even though it was Masters of the Universe type stuff. So this is Agatha. It's made by Marvel. It's in the Marvel continuity.
Stop it.
See, I'll give you an example. And the other internet people will get mad at me. You want this to be more deeply entwined into the MCU in general. I am glad that it's not.
Well, and that's where you're wrong. That's where you're wrong.
Listen.
I'll listen.
Well, you
Go ahead.
want only projects that are.
Yes.
And you mentioned Mobius.
Yes.
To this very moment, I have not watched a single second of Loki season 2. Not one. And that is not because I did not enjoy Loki season 1. You
didn't miss anything.
I liked Loki season 1. I enjoyed it. And I don't think that I have no reason to believe I won't at least like Loki season 2 a little bit.
Oh, so hold on. So you missed short round. You don't even know that short round was in Loki season 2. You didn't even know that, did you?
No.
You need to watch it now, Dan. You need to watch it now.
I have intentions of watching it at some point. I'm not intentionally avoiding it. I don't think I'll really, really dislike it, but you know why I haven't gotten around to watching it? It is just so deeply immersed and entrenched in this MCU multiverse.
Yeah, it is.
Timeline.
No, you're right. You're right. And that's why I didn't. That's why I didn't care for it, and that's why I didn't care for season 2. You are right.
It's like doing homework. It's like doing homework sometimes, And it's like, man, this story has gotten so convoluted, and it's so out of control, and nobody's having fun with this anymore. And there's probably high points. There was high points to season 1, but season 2, and I'm going to watch it. Don't get in the comments and tell me I need to watch it. I know I need to watch it. I'm going to watch it, but I don't need even to. Though I love what Tom Hiddleston, that's his name, right?
Tom Hiddleston,
yeah, Tom Hiddleston. I love him as Loki. I love the character of Loki in the MCU. I liked the first season, but just the whole multiverse TVA, and I loved Owen Wilson. In season 1, I almost bought one of them T-shirts of him on a jet ski. I thought that was hilarious.
But once again, look, man. All right, I get exactly what you're saying. All right, I guess my main question is, why would the main reason that I don't like not having projects that people care about in the MCU is because that's when the MCU is great. All right. If we can get to the point where we're focusing on the characters and the projects and the stories that people actually want to see, then that's when the MCU will be great. That's when it was great before. What we've done here in the last phase and a half, okay, ever since Endgame, essentially, it actually started before Endgame, but after Endgame, let's say, because Endgame was kind of the compilation of everything in the Infinity Saga. After Endgame, where we really had problems was these stories that nobody really cared about in the MCU. And then it became, well, let's try something else. Well, let's try something else. Well, let's try something else. And sooner or later, instead of just having one character I don't care about, there's a whole continuity of characters that I need to follow that I still have to try to put in a linear story to make it make sense. And then what happens is, if I decide that I'm done with one of those characters or one of those rosters of characters or anything like that, I can't just be done with it because they're now integrally involved in the story. And that's the biggest problem that I have with where the MCU went. They tried so many things that were off the beaten path. And then they got to the point where they're just like, well, just keep throwing something against the wall. They'll like some of this eventually. And then they started bringing back other stuff and did 4th and 5th installments of franchises to try to get us to come back. I'm telling you, where they went wrong was just not focusing on the stories and the characters that people care about. And that's my main problem with this project. My main problem with this project is it's not something that people care about. I could have done without this completely. Okay. I could have done without this completely.
That's the thing. You don't care about it. There's a wide audience.
There is no way. There is not a wide audience for this show, Dan. Okay. I will guarantee you when the Nielsen's come out, 90% of this audience abandoned this show after the first 5 minutes because they turned it on and it was a procedural crime drama. And they're like, what's this? I thought this was a witch show. And they completely abandoned the show. I will guarantee you when the Nielsen's come out, that's what it's going to show.
100% of the people who are watching this show are watching it because they watched WandaVision. So they would not have been thrown off by that because Wanda did that for
you are incorrect, Dan. The Hocus Pocus fans and the witch people that have no idea this is even a Marvel show are jumping on board. And I'll guarantee you, they will. The Nielsen's will show that this is absolutely terrible.
No, Jonathan doesn't think there's a wide audience for this.
There is not. Jonathan is correct.
Jonathan thinks there's a big wide audience of masochists who want to watch sad things about superheroes.
So here, how about this, Dan? Okay, the first episode, the premiere. Okay,
yeah,
The Acolyte had an 11 million premiere for the first 7 days. All right, I'm sorry, for the first 5 days. Okay, for the first 5 days, it had an 11 million premiere. For the first 7 days of this show, it had a 9 million premiere. Okay. And The Acolyte just got canceled. Okay. The Acolyte just got canceled. So
this is a miniseries. It's never going to get renewed.
It doesn't matter. It's not a wide audience. That's the whole point.
No, it's a wide enough audience. Again, they didn't spend Acolyte money on this, Tim.
Okay. But
they didn't spend.
You don't have to tell me. I can tell they didn't spend Acolyte money, Dan. I can tell.
There's a wide enough audience to justify what they have produced. Again, if you're going to be a full-fledged studio, you're going to make huge things for tons of people that cost a lot of money. You're going to make smaller scale things also.
Marvel is a comic book studio. You need to stop this. It's a comic book studio.
These are comic book characters,
but they're not doing it that way.
They're comic book characters
doing it that way. It's why I don't like the show. It's why I don't like the show.
Here's Jonathan. This show isn't awful so far, though. The ending was spoiled for me on Facebook. It made me think of the tale of Rocket Raccoon. So is he thinking about Guardians?
He's thinking about Guardians 3. That's what he's thinking about.
Did he know what happened with Guardians 3?
Well,
I didn't know what was going to happen.
In Guardians 3, in Guardians 3, with Rocket Raccoon, he lost his friends, and they all died. And
what we've learned here, and I told you this like 2 or 3 weeks ago, Agatha is not making any friends. She doesn't care about these people, and she's not going to care about them.
Nope.
That's what tipped Wiccan over the edge. Is Alice comes to Agatha's defense, tries to save her, and Agatha's established powers is if you shoot her with your witch magic, she can just drain you. Yeah. She absorbs it, and at a certain point, Jared's tail, Tim. Jared. Who's Jared? Or Jared
Jared
that
Mayo?
didn't show up? Yeah,
I don't
what's
know
his
what you're
tail?
talking
I
about.
don't know his tail.
I don't know his tail.
Okay. Anyway.
Oh well.
So I was saying, what were we? That totally threw me off, man.
Guardians 3. Were you talking about Guardians 3 and
No,
Agatha draining the power. Agatha draining the power. That's what it was. Go ahead.
So you could tell in that scene that Agatha realizes what she's doing, and she says that she couldn't control it after they get out, right? But Wiccan's like, yes, you could. And you could see in the scene, there's a point at which she wasn't doing it on purpose, but then she did start doing it on purpose. She could have stopped short of killing Alice, but she didn't want to, because her whole goal all along,
I think,
is to steal as much power as possible.
The big, and here's the big thing, okay? I think the only thing that is going to make this somewhat redeemable is at the very end, we find out that the reason that she's been after this power all along, going all the way back to WandaVision. Remember, WandaVision, she was looking to obtain the Darkhold, right? Or she had the Darkhold.
Yeah, she was trying to obtain Wanda's power, I think.
Yeah.
She was trying to steal Wanda's power.
And that was right. So this is the whole thing. She's been trying to steal power this whole time. I'm almost convinced the reason that she's trying to do that is because she wants to resurrect her son or do something to save her son. Okay.
That's a little repetitive. We just had Wanda completely break bad trying to save her.
That's kind of what I'm getting at. I think that's kind of been done already. And if that kind of is the direction they end up going, I think that's already kind of been played. I would not be here for that if that's what they end up doing. And I'm already not here for it either way, but you know.
They probably can't do it worse than they did in Multiverse of Madness.
I think they can. I think they can.
I don't know. Because Multiverse of Madness is a really high bar of bad. I mean, taking on it. Here's another thing. This is where the continuity starts falling apart. Taking on its own as a film that, like, even if you just say watch Doctor Strange, and then Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, you know, if you don't watch the rest of the MCU, then maybe. But as a sequel to WandaVision, Multiverse of Madness doesn't work at all. It's just awful. I think it totally steals Wanda's redemption arc. It makes her, you know, it just.
I've got to admit, when I went in, I actually did not have it in there. That I didn't have it in my brain. We're not going to talk about that, Jonathan. That's a ridiculous take. But I didn't have it in my brain that Wanda was even going to be the antagonist. Like, I'm not going to lie. It actually is something that caught me off guard. And there are some things in that movie that just completely and totally blew me away. The Battle of Carmitage was amazing. Okay. There were a lot of things that were really good. They had a lot of good horror arcs when they got to a lot of the different multiverses and stuff. I do agree with you, though. As a sequel to WandaVision, it just didn't work. And so I liked Multiverse of Madness as an individual story. And this is kind of what I have to say about the MCU post Endgame. I have to say that I liked things individually, not as a whole. You know, I liked No Way Home individually. I like Multiverse of Madness individually, but nothing really connects anymore. And that's my main problem with the MCU now is they're not doing the things that they can put in a nice linear story and have it all line up like dominoes, and I can just knock them over, and it's so satisfying. It's not like that anymore. And that's kind of the problem.
Because they did build slowly. People think it was totally integrated from the beginning, and it wasn't.
No, it was not.
The fact that it wasn't is why it worked. DC learned all the wrong lessons from the early MCU. The early MCU,
they tried to do it.
Yeah. The movie
they tried to do it. It didn't work.
You know, Iron Man stood completely on its own. You got all the way through to the end of the movie, post credits. There's Nick Fury. We're going to assemble the Avengers. The Incredible Hulk, which is a better movie than you remember. Watch it.
I love the Incredible Hulk. Yeah. I love that movie. Yeah.
The fight with Abomination in Harlem is just amazing. New and creative ways to use the Hulk's power. Ripping a car in half and using it as boxing gloves.
Boxing gloves. Yeah.
That's just So that movie, I mean, even though Iron Man has already happened, it is not tied in at all. Post credits, Tony Stark, we're putting a team together. You know, so And then, Captain America took place before those movies, and they don't tie it. So they laid all this groundwork. They peppered it in. They laid it slowly, and none of it came together until Avengers. So it was not very integrated. Then Avengers comes, and everything gets really integrated. And then somewhere along Avengers 2 or 3, that's whenever some of the critics started complaining that this is too integrated. These aren't standalone movies anymore. These are episodes of a TV show.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You can't understand this one without having watched that one. And this one is really just a part of a serial, and it's a commercial for the next one. Is that that's still.
That's a ridiculous statement, Jonathan. That's a ridiculous statement. We're not even going to acknowledge that.
Yeah, we're putting you in the penalty box there. We're not going to read that out.
In fact, that's a good Nerd Champs debate. Eventually, we're gonna one of us is gonna rip you to shreds on that one, and the other one is gonna back us up. So I don't even know why you'll come. Anyway,
we'll put that to the test.
So a couple things about this episode. So a couple people that just really weren't that involved, right? Like I know that Rio had a couple of lines about let's just slit her throat and blah 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 and all that kind of stuff. But Rio really wasn't a huge part of this episode, and Jennifer wasn't really a huge part of this episode. I mean, they were there, but there wasn't really any major thing for them. It kind of and it's kind of been that way, but it felt like the other episodes, the people that weren't central still had something. You know what I mean? Like Alice in the wine party, she wasn't really integral in that. But she was she did have that thing where she saw her mom, right? And so it was kind of weird. So it was kind of weird that the other two witches just kind of were in the background on this one. I didn't know what you thought about that.
We did get to establish Rio still has protective feelings for Agatha. She didn't want Agatha to be left with her mother.
Yeah.
So, and we can kind of from that draw on how long their history is. It must go back pretty far.
Yeah.
Jennifer was just totally in the weeds.
Not even there. I mean, not even there at all. I was kind of trying to figure out I was trying to think of one quippy line that one of them said or something like that, and I can't really think of anything memorable other than when Rio said, "Let's just slit her throat" or something.
Lila didn't do a whole lot, really.
Who's that?
Lila, the witch with the precognitions and stuff.
Oh yeah. Now, she did have kind of some little thing towards the end, like a premonition or something, right? So there was something there with her. At least she had that, but the other witches just didn't do anything. I mean, so I was kind of surprised.
And with the end of this, our structure may be kind of thrown off, because we're losing members of the coven. We're down Alice, and we've ended this episode with everybody being trapped in quicksand. Teen is not on their side anymore. The 7 are after them. So how are they going to unite around finding another house and doing another challenge or whatever, They
don't really have a choice, right? I mean, that's really the only thing is they got to get through this, but now they don't trust her. So, the witch laugh. She did do the witch laugh on the broom. Yes, that is a great point. That's something Rio did in this episode. That was
fantastic. I told my wife, I said, Aubrey Plaza has a fantastic Wicked Witch laugh.
Yep.
I mean, if they want to do, I know they just did Wicked, but if they want to do the Wizard of Oz again, she could be the Wicked Witch of the West. She could do that. I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog. She could deliver that. Perfect.
That was very, very classic Wizard of Oz. Once again, the Wizard of Oz, Easter eggs that they keep kind of dropping throughout this whole series are kind of there for you to pick up. So for sure.
Yeah, Rio as the Green Witch is giving us some Wicked Witch of the West fun, vibes. In this show.
Yeah, for sure.
She's bringing a lot of the fun that's in the show, I think. So they should give her more. I'm looking forward to the episode where it's her challenge.
Yeah. Now I've actually kind of done a little bit of research on the character. The character itself does not appear. I think it might be an MCU original character because I don't see anything
there's
comic
new
related.
Speculation, Tim. I have found speculation that you haven't, which I don't know about buying this. The internet speculation is that Rio is Lady Death.
Oh yeah, I did see that. That's right. That was actually in
Yeah.
our comments, and yeah, I have seen that. And this was kind of like when they did the Ouija board, and
Mm-hmm.
death was one that they spelled out. Do you remember that? So,
Yeah, death
but
is
then
here.
what? Yeah, so I thought that was kind of an interesting thing as well. So yeah, for sure.
So yeah, so that was good. So yeah, we've lost Alice. I guess Jennifer and Lila still need to have their in Rio. So we got 3 challenges to go. And I can pick things apart too. I'm liking this show. Tim is not. But if I'm going to pick something apart, I'm going to tell you that we just spent last week's episode, the whole episode, removing a generations long curse from the women of Alice's family. That's what the whole episode was about. They rid her family female lineage of a curse. And then she immediately dies the next episode, having had no daughters. So the previous episode accomplished exactly
nothing at all.
nothing.
It means absolutely nothing. So
Nothing. It just because immediately by the end of the next episode, poof. Like that.
And once again, here's the thing. Maybe Agatha knows something that we all don't know. And at the end of the road, if she ends up getting all of her power, she can fix all this. Okay. That might be a part of it. Honestly, that's the kind of do-over that I would just hate. That would mean like absolutely no stakes whatsoever. You know what I mean?
Fall and hit her head, and she'll wake up in bed, and she'll be like, "And you were there,
and you were there.
I was on a road."
Oh gosh, it was so stupid.
How about that, Tim? Would you buy that?
Oh no. The Wizard of Oz tropes have just got to stop, man. So, but yeah, I mean, ultimately, this is the kind of show that I was expecting. I was expecting more of this kind of an episode. Okay, more witch stuff, more magic, more creepy stuff. I was expecting more of that than we've gotten to this point. So, I could have, I think I might have approached it differently in my mind had I got more of that to this point, because that's more of what I was expecting. But now that we're here, I think it the series in my mind is a little too far gone. That's the way it feels to me.
They finally got around to giving you what you thought you might like.
Well, it's not what I might like, but at least they weren't lying about what it was. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. Like now, I feel like this is the most Halloween-esque type story. That's good, but I still need to know how this is going to be important. I feel like there's really no reason for me to want Agatha to achieve her goal unless you can dangle something out there. Give me something. Give me a reason for why Agatha needs to attain her power, and I'll start cheering for you. You know what I mean? But right now, this is just a selfish story. It doesn't really mean anything to me, and it doesn't mean anything to the greater MCU. So why am I watching it? Well, because I'm doing this show with you every week, Dan. That's why.
I like selfish stories about selfish people that are comedies. Sometimes they don't have to have redemptive. It's like
that's the other thing. I just don't think this show's very funny. I mean, and I think it could be. I think it could be funny, but I just don't think it's very funny. I think Catherine Hahn is hilarious. I loved her in The Goods. I loved her in Bad Moms. I loved her in all that stuff.
Bad Moms 2.
She's Bad Moms 2. She's hilarious. I love Catherine Hahn, but I feel like this show, she put the comedy stuff to the side. She uses it occasionally, but I just never get there. And so, Werewolf by Night is going to pop up in the post credits for this show, telling Agatha that he's putting a team together.
It's going to be him and Man Thing, Tim. Are you
Man
for
Thing?
That?
Yeah, and Man Thing.
Man Thing and Werewolf by Night. It's going to be Agatha. We're going to have the midnight.
Blade will show up. It'll be great, right? So there you go.
The Goods is one of the most underrated comedy films of all time.
I'm Dawn Ready, and I got the goods. That's right. At one point, I had the smoking on an airplane speech memorized, but we're not going to go into that right now.
For all of you who don't know, Tim and I are old car dogs, and that's how
we are. Met. We are car guys, right, Dan?
But if you want to watch the good comedy about car salesmen, it's called Suckers.
Yep,
Oh,
absolutely.
that is
Lori
exactly what.
Loughlin.
Yeah.
Lori Loughlin, before she went to jail, was in that movie. That's right.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah.
And that if you want to see how me and Tim spend our days, watch Suckers, and you'll know. I was the guy.
We'll let you figure out which one was Dan and which one was me.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll let you figure it out.
Yeah, you come back in the comments and guess who was who in the Suckers thing.
All right.
Oh, they're gonna hate us now, Tim. They're gonna
Oh, I
he's
know.
that dirty
I
guy
know.
ripped me off.
Oh well.
Yes, we were. That was us.
So, I mean, ultimately, just to kind of, I think to kind of wrap up Agatha, I think that we pretty much had about the same perspective on the show that we had before. I think that we can say that this was a little fresher take, and this was maybe more on point for the genre.
Yeah,
I think we both will agree to that at least. And I feel like they at least threw something different in. I feel like when they were on the road having the Salem 7, that was something different. It wasn't just walking and finding a house, which is what they've done the previous 2 episodes.
right.
So I feel like there's something there. It's a little different. But at the expense of, I don't want people to think I like the episode, because I really didn't. You know what I mean? So, you know, it's a little different. It's a little different than the other episodes. A little different than what I was expecting, but
just so you all know, Tim edits most of our episodes, and I edit these ones. So I'm gonna make it look like Tim really loved this episode. That's why he keeps repeating that he didn't like it, because he's afraid I'm gonna put a Tim loves Agatha cut together. That's what's going on here.
knock yourself out, Dan. Knock yourself out. Okay. But yeah, I mean, but at the very end, I think, you know, we got the hook with Wiccan. We're going to find out where that leads next week. So that's ultimately where we're at.
So that's where we are with Agatha this week. The rest of the nerd universe, while we're here live, did you have any other takes from around the nerddom that you wanted to delve into?
I think there's a couple of things. First of all, Agatha is kind of the latest in a line of projects that don't have to do with heroes, and I think that's kind of interesting. You know, we have had a lot of standalone villain films and TV shows and things like that lately. We've got the Penguin going on right now. Mm-hmm. We've got Venom coming out. We have Joker that just came out. Joker Folie à Deux, all right, which just came out. Yeah. And then we've got Craven coming out. This seems to be a trend that a lot of studios are trying to take part in, is try to have these standalone villain projects and kind of see if maybe people can embrace the villain from a different perspective. I just don't care for it. I'll say it. I mean, you know, Agatha is one of those that I just personally don't care for, but, you know, I've not watched a single one of those. I have not watched either of the Venom movies that have come out yet.
No,
I did not watch the first Joker movie. I will not watch this Joker movie. And I feel like there's really no argument to be made that would make me want to go see those. I'm not going to go see Craven. I didn't go see Morbius. I didn't see Morbius. Yeah. No. I'm not going to go see Morbius. So this is all, I mean, you know, to me, this is just more of the same. That's my main issue, I think, with Agatha, is it's introducing something like that into the MCU, which I really didn't want. I mean, I think a lot of people would look at it and say Loki, and I would argue that's one of the problems with Loki, is this is a guy that, if you're following the timeline, he was literally just taken from when he tried to destroy New York City, and then he was taken right to the TVA. And now he's just, let's save the universe. Let's just do all this. And that's not, it doesn't make any sense. And so, so that kind of didn't work there. And Agatha, it doesn't work either. And I feel like Joker, my personal opinion on Joker has always kind of been that you can't have Joker without Batman. It just doesn't make sense. If he's not fighting Batman, I'm uninterested. I mean, you know, and so that's just kind of the way that I always felt about it.
Yeah, 99% of the time when it comes to a villain standalone story, I'm also totally uninterested. The movies, for some reason, to me, are worse than the shows for some reason on TV, because, like, I've watched Loki, I've watched Agatha. I have no interest in seeing any of those movies. I just don't. I'm not going to watch The Penguin. And Joker has been all over the internet
Mhm.
this week, and all you people on YouTube, the fans of the first Joker film, that don't understand why, and why would Todd Phillips do this, and what is his motivation? And I'm not the target for this movie.
Yeah.
And who was the target? You were the target. And by target, I mean
Mhm.
literal target. It was aimed at you. It's
You
an
were the
assault.
mark.
You're
You
the
were the
mark.
you were the mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hollywood, by and large, huge numbers of it. Hollywood hates you,
Mhm.
especially like all the creators involved in something like The Joker and Joker 2. And by you, I mean fanboys. In 2008, Iron Man and The Dark Knight came out. Superheroes took over the box office and the multiplex, and we have not looked back. It's the only thing anyone is willing to buy a ticket for. Nobody's buying tickets to anything else.
Mhm.
Rom-coms, chick flicks,
Nope.
gritty dramas, slapstick comedies, they're all going straight to streaming now. Uh, None of it. The only time you do get a dent is when you have somebody like Christopher Nolan, who made his stones taking superhero movies seriously and built a fan base out of the only people willing to buy movie tickets anymore, which is
Mhm.
superhero fans. The people in Hollywood are film nerds. They're not superhero fans, and they're furious that they have to keep making superhero movies. They don't want to anymore. Todd Phillips was trying to insult you with the first Joker movie. He wanted to make a serious, gritty 70s Martin Scorsese style taxi
Mhm.
driver, king of comedy drama. But nobody will buy a ticket to that kind of movie anymore. So he made one with a guy called Joker in it. He thought that, and he's showing you in this movie what you didn't realize last time. He thinks all superhero fans are immature incels who live in their mother's basement. It would not even be able to fathom the complexities of the kind of story he was telling in that first Joker movie. He thought that you would hate it. He thought that you would
Mhm.
be reviled by it. He thought that the film press would love it, and that you know comic nerds would be defeated.
Mhm.
And when you embraced it and loved it, it infuriated him. He was so very mad that you
Mhm.
took his movie that was supposed to destroy your dreams and lionized it and said it was great and made it make $1 billion. He
Yeah, they
was
gave
so
the
mad.
Oscar to Joaquin Phoenix. I mean, they
Yeah,
gave the Oscar to him.
yeah.
It
If
was
you don't,
amazing.
yeah. If you don't believe me about how mad he was, go watch Joker 2 for the first or second time.
Yeah.
That's he makes this version of the Joker. This version of the Joker, I haven't seen it. I'm going off what I've heard. But listen, I know when I'm being insulted. So I'm not giving him any money to go watch his movie. This version of the Joker is a stand-in for you. He
Mhm.
gets disrespected, uh, emasculated, and killed at the end because that's what he wants to do to you. He wants to kill you,
Well,
literally and figuratively. He
and
wants you out of the movie business.
I don't think it's any mistake that these movies were written in the style of a Scorsese film. I don't think it's any mistake, and the reason is because we all know, what was it, 2 years ago, that
Yeah,
Scorsese came out and ripped apart the success of Marvel movies and says people just don't appreciate good cinema anymore. This is not good cinema. And then he goes and he makes Killers of the Flower Moon, which was the most boring movie I have ever seen in my entire life. Okay.
yeah,
Look, I understand completely that Martin Scorsese wants every movie to be as serious and as like amazing as Goodfellas, but it's not ever going to be. And that movie that he just made, it was the perfect example of why you can't always just expect that kind of thing to happen in these movies. I sat here just waiting on the story to develop, and I'm like, oh, so it's
yeah,
just a bunch of people that are just murdering Indians. Okay, this is not, okay. But that's not what
yeah,
I thought it was. I thought it was going to be, some kind of twist and some kind of plot turn. Scorsese has completely fallen off. He thinks he has to do something, from a weird angle that still involves a lot of blood and a lot of gore and a lot of things like that in order to get people to go see it. It was a really, really weird film. And I would just say, if that's the standard for good film, as far as Scorsese's concerned, I don't really even care what he thinks. And I don't need to go see Joker 2, a Scorsese film. I can see a Scorsese film anytime I want to. I want to see the Joker. Yeah, exactly. I could watch Goodfellas. I could watch Casino. I could watch a lot of that stuff. Yeah. And just say, I can do mob films whenever I want to see a mob film. I don't need to see the Joker in a mob film. I don't need to see Penguin in a mob series. I don't need to see that stuff anymore. I can watch The Sopranos anytime I want. We talked about that already, Dan.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's kind of where I am on this stuff. These standalone villain films, I do think you're right. I think, and once again, what they're trying to do is they're trying to mix the genres in that we don't need mixed in the superhero universe. I understand that there are a lot of superheroes that deal with the mob. I understand that completely. Okay. Right. Batman in particular, but Batman deals with the mob, but the mob has always kind of been like a second tier story. All right. Batman deals with supervillains first. Okay.
Right.
And the Arkham crazies, that's who he deals with first. And then the mob just kind of is there. Okay.
Yeah. In between.
I don't need to see an exclusive mob show about Gotham City. That's ridiculous. Okay. They tried that. They tried that on was it Fox that they tried to do the Gotham show? Yeah. And it didn't work. Why?
By the second season, everybody had superpowers.
That's right. Because people were getting tired. People were getting tired of a Gotham mob show. Okay. That's kind of what's going to happen with Penguin 2. I'll guarantee it. Okay. Well, I'll guarantee it. And this is the Joker. This whole thing with the Joker. I'm still uninterested. You can't make me go see it. If there's no Batman, I'm not going to go see it. All right. I always say this, there needs to be a subtitle at the bottom, Joker not fighting Batman, because that's what that is to me. This isn't the Joker. This is just some guy in a clown outfit that does terrible things.
Well, he's intrinsically not the Joker now. I mean, he gets killed by the end of this movie. He's done nothing.
Yeah.
So, and really, they're letting you know that we tricked you. This was not about the Joker. It was just my little movie to cash in. And they all have their different motivations. Sony continues churning out villain movies as a cash grab. Those movies look like cash grabs. And it's a legal issue. They keep turning out more Spider-Man content to make sure that the rights don't default back to Disney at any point. They got to produce X number of projects within this timeline.
That's why they do all the animated films. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And the animated films are good and they care about them. Whereas these villain films look like, okay, this is a product to keep our rights intact.
That's it.
DC is handing the reins to Todd Phillips, who honestly hates us. That's it. He wants to hurt you. And people aren't going to, after Joker 2, people will probably come around and agree to it. I've been saying this since Joker 1, that this is supposed to be an insult, and that's why I don't want to go see it. People might believe me now on Joker 2. But when it comes to the Batman and the Penguin, trust me, the creatives behind that whole universe of Batman feel exactly the same way about you that Todd Phillips does. They don't like the Batman. They don't like that they're making a movie with a caped superhero. They wish they were making 7, and that's why the Batman, I haven't seen this movie either, going off what I've been told, but they gave you a Batman that is no more capable or competent than a pretty good cop.
Nope.
He's not the smartest guy in the room. The Riddler is the smartest guy in the movie. He doesn't solve the Riddler turns himself. It's basically 7.
Yeah.
In 7, John Doe, Kevin Spacey's character, outwits Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt. He wins in the end because he gets Brad Pitt to kill him, and that's what he wanted him to do in the 7th inning. I mean, he wins. He outwits them. Does the Batman outwit the Riddler in the Batman, Tim? You went and saw it.
Well, basically what ends up happening is the Riddler gets caught, but then the Riddler has bombs set throughout the whole city, and Batman doesn't figure out in time. And the bombs that are set, they're set specifically to break the dam and the city gets flooded. So there you go. So the Riddler wins if you want to get it that way. But
Right.
the one thing that is just that never made sense to me is that the Riddler never figured out that he was Bruce. The Riddler's target the whole time was Bruce, not Batman. And so because he abandoned the orphanage or whatever, and so that was kind of the thing that didn't make any sense, is that the Riddler would not have figured out that he was Bruce. Okay. Yeah. And Batman is sitting there and talking to the Riddler, and then the Riddler tells him, "You're he tells him that Bruce Wayne was his main target." And at that point, Batman thinks he figured it out, and he's like, "Oh no." And then the Riddler keeps talking, and he's like, "Oh, he has no idea I'm Bruce Wayne." Okay. You know what I mean? Like, that was it. And you're just like, this is the stupidest movie I've ever seen. At that point, it was like 2.5 hours in, and I was just like, oh my goodness, just finish the movie already. You know what I mean? Like, it was like at that point. But
these people, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, basically, what you said is correct. They got to the point where things that normally would happen for Batman were not happening for Batman. Okay. Yeah. And him getting outsmarted and being one step behind and all that kind of stuff. It's just not really, unless he's dealing with someone that is intellectually his equal, which the Riddler never has been. Okay. Yeah. That's one of those things that just makes no sense. And so I kind of didn't like it because of that. That's one of the reasons I didn't like it. But a lot of the, that's when I go back to Agatha, okay, which is where this conversation started. I feel like they're doing that to us through Agatha as well, Dan. And I think that's kind of the problem. They're kind of just sticking it to us. They're saying, "Oh, you like Marvel content, huh? Well, here's your Marvel content," right? I feel like they're kind of doing the same thing. Kevin Feige is doing the same thing that Phillips is doing. He's basically saying, "Oh, you want some Marvel content, huh? Okay."
It's in the intent is the way I see it. I can see through the interviews, through the tone of the film, the people making the Batman, they'll say it in interviews. They had no affinity for Batman as a character or a mythos. They had to find their way into it. And they still don't. They want to make a cop drama. So they put Batman in it because they can't sell tickets to a cop drama. They want to make a mob show. So they put the Penguin in it because people won't watch it unless the Penguin's in it. And they're embarrassed of and resent the fact that they have to put this IP in there. I mean, you can kind of just sense it. They don't want it to be there. There's a difference in Kevin Feige has made a lot of mistakes, but he is one of us. He's a comic nerd, and he does love these characters. He wants to explore other genres, and like you can get John Hughes film starring Spider-Man. You can get a spy thriller starring Captain America. And the thing is that they're not embarrassed that they're making a superhero movie. You know what I'm saying? They've made those movies.
I think that used to be true. I think we're to the point with Kevin Feige where he is over the fan base. He is over the fan base wanting something specific, and he's going to just do what he wants to do. And if you don't like it, that's how we end up with projects like this. That's what I think.
Yeah, he's not happy with you wanting Iron Man number 27, Tim. But
I don't want Iron Man number 27. You keep saying that. I don't want Iron Man number 27. But there are characters. There are 7,000 characters in the Marvel universe. Okay, there are a lot of characters to be explored that have not been explored. And Agatha gets her own project. It makes no sense. It really makes no sense.
Specifically, Iron Man. It's a very narrow tone that you want to have achieved.
You're nailing me on the head, Dan. You got me. And out of my superhero films, I expect superheroes. I really do. Okay. I know it's a tall order to expect superheroes out of a superhero franchise that puts out superhero content. I know It's a huge bar.
It's a full-fledged studio now. It's a full-fledged studio.
It doesn't matter. Full-fledged studio based on superhero content. It's Marvel Studios. Okay. This, if you want to do, Hocus Pocus Studios and give me a Hocus Pocus show, fine. But this is Marvel Studios. And there are so many characters they haven't even looked at. And here I am now with Agatha. All right. I'm not happy about it. That's just all there is to it.
None of those characters are that great, Tim. I'm just sorry. They're just not. They're not. There aren't.
You don't think the X-Men are great? I'm sorry.
The X-Men.
I'm sorry you don't like the X-Men.
Developed in the public consciousness. They are out there. They have been adapted. They've been adapted fairly well. The only thing new that Disney and Marvel Studios could do with the X-Men is roll them into a universe where they could interact with the Avengers, and all of the Avengers are gone.
They are gone.
Yeah. So I do not want them to introduce the X-Men until they reboot. I really don't. Because the only thing I'm interested, because they're rebooting the X-Men. Because you've had the Fox X-Men just wrapped up.
Yeah.
And yeah. So they're rebooting the X-Men. I don't want them to reboot the X-Men into a dying MCU. That's just a waste of time and energy.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people aren't going to believe that the X-Men specifically and the Fantastic Four wouldn't be involved in Secret Wars. Okay. So I feel like Secret Wars has to be something. They have to introduce them before then. Okay. And it doesn't look like that's going to happen. So yeah,
I don't.
So yeah, I mean, Fantastic Four is. I know that Fantastic Four is coming before then, but X-Men is not. And so
I don't want the Fantastic Four in this continuity. I really don't, because Fantastic Four is being rebooted for a second time. We had the first version, the second version nobody saw, and then this will be the third cinematic version of the Fantastic Four. What's the point of rolling them out into this continuity to interact with almost no one?
The only thing I can figure is that they've got something big with Reed that has to do with discovering things for Secret Wars. That's the only thing that I can figure. I don't know, but we'll have to see. But anyway,
my big theory that they said they were going to do one movie a year. They're rolling out like 3 or 4 in the next few months. Mm-hmm. They're doing characters that are very tangential and tertiary. Fantastic Four is set in the 60s. There's no real reason why the Fantastic Four has to be set in the 60s. They're not tied to that time and place the same way Captain America is tied to World War II.
Yeah.
I think that I hope, and I think that Fantastic Four is being made in such a way that it can be a reboot.
I hope so.
Starting again.
I hope so. You and I have both said that we're pro reboot for a long time. I just happen to think that the direction that they're headed is to make Secret Wars the reboot. That's what I think they're going to do. And I think if that's the case, then that means that we're going to get a whole Fantastic Four film before the reboot. That's what I think. But
I feel like Secret Wars is in a whole new continuity, and that makes the RDJ casting make sense.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what's going to happen. I think that's what's going to happen, but I just don't know that it's going to be done in a way that I'm going to buy it. So anyway, that's just kind of where I'm at with it. But yeah, I mean, I think there's been a good discussion. I think a lot of these standalone villain films we don't really care for, and we know why. But as far as a lot of the continuity in Agatha, I think I'm still at it for a lot of those reasons. I think you're still into it for a lot of the other reasons. And that's kind of, you don't look at this as a standalone villain project. You know what I mean? You look at this as something else. And I look at it as a standalone villain project similar to the other ones. That's the difference, I think. So there you go.
Yeah, because of the tone, I think, and the seasonality of it, it just kind of, and the fact that it's a TV show. The TV show thing helps me. That's why I was there for Loki. I don't think I would have went to the theater for a Loki movie.
No. Yeah. Nobody would have. So, yeah. So,
all right. So, listen, if you are still out there, and it looks, hey, there's 4 people out there, Tim.
Hey, man, subscribe.
Yes. Yes.
All right.
Tell your friends. Wake up your
Hit the
spouse.
button. Smash that button. All right. Go wake up your neighbors. You do what you got to do. Let them know that we are here. They need to follow the Nerd Champs. It is going to be amazing.
Yep. Hit us in the comments. Tell us where we were wrong this week. We'll be hitting some abridged versions of this, or you can hit it in the comments. This will stay up. And just look forward to seeing you guys around. Until next time.
See you later.